Where am I? This thing I remember was reading that horrible Sonic.exe 2 pasta. Why am I hearing bells and whistles and clock tower song? And why the hell is the moon that big? And why am I looking at the band drum? Oh crap. I'm a Majora's Mask. I don't know whether to be scared or happy at the same time, because Majora's Mask is one of my favorite Zelda games next to Twilight Princess. This is like a dream come true. Well, I guess I might as well make the best out of this. Welcome to Drowned. We'll be taking a look at a creepypasta about Judazable, sorry if I butchered that, and his experiences with a haunted Majora's Mask cartridge. And maybe once I finish it, maybe I might get out of here. But I really don't want to leave. This is really awesome. Okay, well, on with the creepypasta. Till I figure out how to get out of here.
Okay, I need your help with this. This is not a creepypasta. This is a long read, but I feel like my safety or well-being could very well depend on this. This is video game related, specifically Majora's Mask. And this is the creepiest shit I have ever experienced in my entire life. Having said that, I recently moved into my dorm room starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked, to say the least. I could finally play all those old games in my youth that I had touched in at least a decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy copy of Super Smash Bros. And well, beggars can't be choosers. Needless to say, it didn't take long until I became bored of being leveled up 9 CPUs. I can relate. I get bored of Smash Brothers very easily. The weekend I decided to drive around a few neighborhoods about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score on some good deals from ignorant parents. I ended up picking up a copy of Pokemon Stadium, GoldenEye, F-Zero, and 2 other controllers for $2. Satisfied, I began to drive out the neighborhood when at least one house caught my attention. I still have no idea why I did it. There were no cars there, and only one table was set up with random junk on it. But for something sorta drew me there. I usually trust my gut on these things, so I got out of my car, and I was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd. If you can ask me to tell you why I thought this was displeasing, I could really pinpoint anything. There was just something about him that put me on edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't the middle of the afternoon and there were no other people within shouting distance, I would not even thought of approaching this man. He flashed a crooked smile at me and asked what I was looking for. I immediately noticed that he must be blind in one of his eyes. His right hand had glazed over look about it. I forced myself to look into his left eye instead, trying not to offend, and asked him if he had any old video games. I was already wondering how I could politely excuse myself from the situation when he would tell me he had no idea what a video game was. But to my surprise, he said he had a few ones in an old box. He assured me he'd be back in a jiffy, and turned back into the garage. As I watched him hobble away, I couldn't help but notice what he was selling on his table. Littered across his table were rather peculiar paintings, various artworks that looked like ink blots from a psychiatrist might show you. Curious, I looked through them. It was obvious why no one was visiting the guy's garage sale. These weren't exactly aesthetic pleasing. As I came to the last one, for some reason it looked like Majora's mask. The same heart-shaped body with little spikes protruding outward. Instantly, I just thought, since it was just secret hoping to find that the game at these garage sales, some Freudian bullshit was perfecting itself into the ink blots. But given the events that happened afterwards, I'm not so sure now. I should have asked the man about it. I wished I would have asked the man about it. After staring at the Majora-shaped blot, I looked up at the old man and was suddenly there again, arm's length in front of me, smiling at me. I admit I jumped out of reflex and laughed nervously as he handed me a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was the standard gray color, except someone had written Majora on it with black permanent marker. I got butterflies in my stomach as I realized the coincidence this was, and asked him how much he wanted for it. The young man smiled at me, told me that I could have it for free. That it used to belong to a kid who was about my age, that didn't live here anymore. There was something weird about how the man praised that, but I didn't really pay attention to it then. I was too caught up in not only finding this game, but getting it for free. I remember myself to be a bit skeptical since this looked like a pretty shabby cartridge and there's no guarantee it would work. But then the optimist inside me interjected that maybe it was some kind of beta version or pirated version of the game. And that was all I needed to do, go back on the cloud mine. I think the man smiled at me and wished me well, saying goodbye then. At least that's what it sounded like to me. All the way into the car ride, I had a nagging doubt about that man had something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game. And there was one file named Ben. Goodbye, Ben, he was saying. Goodbye. I felt bad for the man. Obviously a grandparent and obviously going senile. I, for some reason or another, reminding him of his grandson, Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file, eyeballing it. I could tell that he was pretty far in the game. He had almost all the masks, 3 out of the 4 remains of the bosses. I noticed that he had an owl statue to save his game. He was on day 3. And by the Stone Tower Temple with hardly an hour left before the moon would crash. I remember thinking that was a shame that he could come so close to beating the game, but he never finished it. I made a new file named Link out of tradition and started the game, ready to relive my childhood. For such a shabby looking game cartridge, I'm impressed on how smoothly it ran. Literally just like a retail copy of the game, save for a few minor hiccups here and there. However, the only thing that was little unnerving was that at times the NPCs would call me Link, and other times they would call me Ben. I figured it was just a bug, a fluke in the programming causing our files to get mixed up or something. It did kind of creep me out though after a while, and it was around after I beaten Woodfall Temple that I regrettably went into the save files and deleted Ben. Hoping that would solve the problem, it did and it didn't. Now, NPCs wouldn't call me anything, where my name should be in the dialogue, there was just a blank space. Frustrated and with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again last night, getting the Lens of Truth, and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now, some of you more hardcore Majora's Mask players knows about the 4th day glitch. For those of you who don't, you can Google it, but just the gist of it is that right as the clock is about to hit 0 on the final day, you can talk to the astronomer and look through the telescope. If you time it right, the countdown disappears and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Deciding the glitch to try and finish the Snowhead Temple, I happened to get it right on the first try, and the time counter at the bottom disappeared. Ugh, glitches. However, when I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in the Majora's Mask boss fight room at the end of the game, staring at Skull Kid hovering above me. There was no sound, just him floating in the air above me, and the background music was regular for the area. Immediately, my palms began to sweat. This was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the area, but no matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me, looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen though, and this kept up for around 60 seconds. I thought the game had bugged or something, but I was beginning to doubt that very much. I was about to reach the reset button when a text appeared on my screen. You're not sure why, but you apparently had a reservation. I instantly recognized that text. You get that message when you get the room key from Andrew at the Stockpile Inn. But why was it playing here? I refused to entertain the notion that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. I started to navigate the room again, testing to see if that was some sort of trigger that enabled me to interact with something here. Then I suddenly realized how stupid I was. To even think that someone could reprogram the game like this was absurd. Sure enough, 15 seconds later, another message appeared on the screen. And again, like the first one, it was already a pre-existing phrase. Go to the lair of the temple's boss. Yes or no? I paused for a second contemplating what I should press on how the game would react. When I realized that I couldn't select no. Something different. Taking a deep breath, I pressed yes, and the screen faded to white, with the words, Dawn of a New Day, with the subtext, Ah, beneath it. Where I was ported to filled with me the most intense sense of dread and impending fear I had ever experienced. The only way I can describe the way how I felt here is having the feeling of inexplicable depression on a profound scale. I am normally not a depressed person, but the way I felt here was a feeling that I didn't even know existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to wash over me. I appeared on some kind of weird Twilight Zone version of Clocktown. I walked out of the clock tower only to find that all the inhabitants were gone. Usually within the fourth day glitch, you can still find the guard and the dog that runs around outside the tower. This time they were all gone. What replaced them was the ominous feeling was that something was out there. In the same area as watching me, and it was watching me. I have 4 hearts to my name and the hero's bow, but at this point I wasn't even considered for my avatar. I felt that I was personally in some kind of danger. Perhaps the most chilling thing was the music. It was the Song of Healing, ripped straight from the game itself, but played in reverse. The music would get louder, building up so as if you should expect something to pop out at you, but never ever did. And the constant loop began to wear on my mental state. Every now and then, I would hear the faint laugh of the happy masked salesman in the background. Just quiet. Enough so that I wasn't sure if I was just hearing things, but just out loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all 4 zones of Clocktown, only to find nothing. No one. Textures were missing. West Clocktown had me walking on air. The entire area felt broken. Hopelessly broken. As the reverse Song of Healing repeated for what may have been the 50th time, I just remember standing in the middle of South Clocktown realizing I had never felt so alone in a video game before. As I walked through the ghost town, I don't remember whether it was the combination of out-of-place textures and the atmosphere of the haunting melody, the once peaceful and soothing song, butchered here and disordered. But I was literally on the verge of tears and I had no idea why. I hardly ever cry. Something had me gripped here, and this powerful sense of depression was both foreign and crippling. I tried leaving Clocktown, but every time I attempted to zone out, the screen would fade to black and I would just zone into another part of Clocktown. I tried playing my ocarina, but I wanted to escape, and I did not want to be here. But every time I played the Song of Time or Song of Soaring, it would only say, "Your note's extra far," but nothing happens. By this point, it was obvious the game didn't want me to leave, but I had no idea why it was keeping me here. I didn't want to go inside the buildings. I felt that I would be too vulnerable there to do whatever I was terrified of. I don't know why, but I came in with the idea that maybe if I drowned myself in the laundry pool, I could spawn somewhere else and leave this place. As I zoned in and ran towards the pool, that's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment of the happy masked salesman smiling at me, not Link. Me with Skull Kid's scream playing in the background, and when the screen returned, I was staring at the Link statue from playing the song Elegy of Emptiness. I screamed as the thing just started back at me, haunting facial expressions. I turned around and ran out and back out into South Clocktown. And to my horror, the statue followed me in the only way I can compare this, like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. Ever so often, at random intervals, the animation would play the statue behind me. It was like the thing was chasing me or haunting me. By this point, I was on the verge of hysterics, but not even once did the thought of turning off the console occur to me. I don't know why. I was so wrapped up in it. The terror felt all so real. I tried to shake the statue, but it would literally appear right behind me every single time. Link began to make weird animations I had never ever seen him do before. He would flail his arms around or spasm randomly, and the screen would cut to the happy masked salesman smiling for a brief moment before I was face to face with that statue again. I ended up running into the Swordsmaster Dojo, and then ran to the back. I don't know why, but in my panic, I just wanted some kind of assurance that I'm not alone here. To my dismay, I found no one. But as I turned to leave the statue, it cornered me into a cubby in the back. I tried attacking the statue with my sword, but to no avail. Confused and backed into a corner, I just stared at the statue, waiting for it to kill me. Suddenly, the screen flashed again to the happy masked salesman, and Link turned to face my screen. Standing upright, mirroring the statue, looking at me with his copy, literally staring at me. Whatever was left on the fourth wall was completely shattered while I ran out of the dojo, terrified. Suddenly, the game warped me to an underground tunnel, and the reverse song of healing queued up again, as I was given a brief moment of the rest before the statue started appearing behind me again, this time aggressively. I could only take a few steps before it was summoned behind me again. I hurriedly make my way out of the tunnel, appeared in southern Clocktown. As I ran aimlessly in a sheer panic, I suddenly read and screamed, and the screen faded to black as dawn of a new day, and appeared again. The screen faded in, and I was standing on top of Clocktown with Skull Kid hovering for me again, silent. I looked up at the moon was back, looming just meters above my head. But the Skull Kid just stared at me, haunting me with that mask. A new song was playing, the Stone Tower Temple theme played in reverse, and in some sort of desperate attempt, I had quit my bow and fired it at the Skull Kid. It accidentally hit him, and then he played the animation of him reeling back. I fired again, and on the third arrow, the text box appeared saying, "That won't do you any good." I was picked off the ground and levitated upwards from my back, and Link screamed as he burst into flames, instantly killing him. I jumped when this happened. I had never seen this move used by anyone in the game, and Skull Kid himself didn't have any moves. As the death screen played, my lifeless body still burning. The Skull Kid laughed and the screen faded to black, only to have me reappear in the same place. I just started to charge him, but the same thing happened. Link's body was lifted off the ground for some unknown force, and he immediately burst into flames again, killing him. This time only during the death scene, the faint sounds of the reverse song of healing could only be heard. On my third and I noticed that there was no music playing this time. That all there was an eerie silence. I remember that in the original counter with the Skull Kid, you were supposed to use the ocarina to either travel back in time or summon the giants. I attempted to play the Song of Time, but before I could hit the last note, Link's body once again horrifically exploded in flames and he died. As the death screen neared its end, it began to chug as if the cartridge was trying to process a lot of something. When the screen came to, it was the same screen as the first 3 times, except this time Link was lying on the ground, dead in a position. I had never ever seen this in the game before. His head tilted to the camera with the Skull Kid floating above him. I couldn't move. I couldn't press any buttons. All I could do was stare at Link's dead body. And after 30 seconds of this, the game simply fades out with the message, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" before kicking you out to the title screen. Upon getting back to the title screen and starting again, I noticed my save file was no longer there. Instead of Link, it was replaced with Your Turn. Your Turn had 3 hearts, 0 masks, and no items. I selected Your Turn, and immediately when I did, I was returned to the clock tower rooftop scene of my Link dead, and the Skull Kid hovering above me, with the Skull Kids laughing and looping again and again. I quickly hit the reset button, and when the game booted up again, there was one more save file added below Your Turn entitled Ben. Ben's save file was right back where it was before. I deleted it. At the Stone Tower Temple with the moon almost crashing, I turned the game off at that point. I'm not superstitious, but this is way too messed up for me. I haven't played it at all today. Hell, I didn't even get any sleep last night. I kept hearing the reverse song of healing music in my head. I just remember the sense of dread I felt exploring Clocktown. I drove back to the old man's house today to ask him some question with a buddy of mine, only to find that there's a for sale sign in the front yard. And when I rang the doorbell, no one was home. So now I'm back here writing down the rest of my thoughts and recording what has happened. Sorry some of this has grammatical errors and whatnot. I'm running on no sleep here, and I'm terrified of this game, even more so now that I'm realized for a second time writing all this down. But I felt like there's still more than meets the eye, and there's something calling me to investigate this further. I think Ben is something in this equation, but I don't know what. And if I could just get a hold of the old man, I would be able to find some answers. I need another day to recuperate before tackling this game again. It's already taken a toll on my sanity, I feel like, but next time I do this, I'm going to be recording my footage all the way through. The idea to record only came to me toward the ends. So, you see the last few minutes of what I saw, but it's on YouTube here. I'm going to stay in this thread a little while longer before I fall asleep and answer any questions you guys might have, or hopefully listen to your ideas or theories on how to help me shed some light into this, or maybe things I should try to do. I think I should going to play Ben's file tomorrow and see what happens. Maybe I was supposed to do all that all along. I don't believe in this paranormal shit, but maybe this Ben guy is just a really good hacker or programmer. I don't really want to think about the alternatives if he isn't. That's the end of this copy or paste. I'm hoping that this maybe is some kind of running gag that the developers had and that other people have gotten the gag or hacked copies of the game like this. This just really scares me. I'm going to post what happened and the link, the video footage. But last night, everything got too real for me. I think I'm done messing around with this. I passed out pretty much immediately after making that thread. But last night, that Elegy of Emptiness statue, I had a dream about it. I dreamed that it was following me in a dream that I would be minding my own business when I feel my hair stand up on end. I would turn around, that thing, that horrible, lifeless statue would be staring with those empty eyes right at me. Merely empty is away. In my dream, I remember calling it Ben. And never before had I dreamed that I could remember so vividly. But the important thing is, I did get some sleep, I suppose. Today, putting off playing that game as long as I could, I drove back up that neighborhood to see if the old man came back. As I expected, the car was still gone, and no one was home. As I walked back to my car, the man next door mowing his grass killed the power to his lawnmower and asked me if I was looking for someone. I told him I was looking to talk to the old man that lived here, to which he had told me that I already knew he was moving. Trying a different avenue, I asked the old man had any family or relatives I could talk to. I discovered that this old man had never been married, nor did he have any children through adoption. Starting to become worried, I asked one final question, one that I should have asked from the beginning. Who is Ben? The man's expression turned grim, and I learned that 4 doors down, around 8 years ago, on April 23rd, the man informed me that was the same day as his anniversary. That's how I knew the specific day. There was an accident with a young boy named Ben in the neighborhood. Shortly after his parents moved, and despite any further attempts to talk to the man to get more information, he wouldn't divulge anything else. I went back and started playing again. I loaded up the game immediately. I jumped at the title screen where the mask flies by. The sound played was not the normal whoosh sound. It was something much more higher pitched. I pressed start, bracing for the worst, but just like 2 nights ago, the files Your Turn and Ben were displayed. I brought up the Ben file, hesitated for a moment, noticing that the stats were not the same as the original 2 days ago. It seemed like he had already completed the Stone Tower Temple this time. Summoning my courage, I selected it. Immediately, I was thrust in complete chaos. Sure enough, I was outside the Stone Tower Temple, but that's about all that was expected. The zone itself wasn't called Stone Tower Temple, but rather E. And immediately, a dialogue box of complete gibberish that I couldn't make out greeted me. Link's body was distorted. His back was cocked violently to the side where his posture was permanently disfigured. Link's expression was dull, almost monotonous. He had an expression on his face that I didn't recognize before. It was a blank look. Not to be rude here, but does Link normally have a blank look? As if he was dead. As Link stood there, his body spasming irregularly back and forth, I examined what had become of my avatar, and I noticed I had a C button item I had never seen before. Some kind of note. But pressing it did nothing. Sounds played back and forth that I didn't recognize from the game. Almost demonic in nature, and there was some kind of high-pitched yip or some kind of laugh or something playing in the background. I had all of 2 minutes to take in the environment before another one of those LG of Emptiness statues was summoned immediately after I was cut into the Dawn of the New Day screen. Except this time, it was without the subtext. I was a DQ scrub in Clocktown. This scene would normally play after first time you travel back in time. Tattle would say, What just happened? It's as if everything has... But instead of saying started over, she finished her remark in broken text and as the laugh of the happy masked salesman in the background. I was put back in control of my character, but from a horrible camera angle. I was looking from beneath the door to the clock tower, watching my avatar run around as a DQ scrub. Seeing as how I really no place to go because I couldn't see anything, I begrudgingly went inside the door. There, I was greeted by the happy masked salesman who simply told me, "You met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" Before the screen whited out, I was in Termina Field as a human again. I might as well not been playing the same game anymore. I was being warped around and there was no sign of a day clock or anything. I took a moment to get my bearings as I looked around the field immediately, and I could tell that this was not normal. There were no enemies, and a twisted version of the Happy Masked Salesman's theme was playing. I decided to run towards Woodfall before I noticed a gathering of 3 figures to the side, one of them being Epona. As I approached them, to my horror, I saw the Happy Masked Salesman, the Skull Kid, and the Elegy of Emptiness statue that just standing there. I figured maybe they were bugged out by now, but by now I told myself I should know better. Nevertheless, I approached them carefully and found that Skull Kid was playing some kind of idle animation on loop. Same with Epona, and the Elegy of Emptiness statue was doing what it has been doing all along, just standing there eerily. It was the happy masked salesman that scared me more profoundly than the other two. He too was idle, wearing that shit-eating grin, but wherever I moved, his head slowly turned and followed me. I had not engaged in any dialogue with him, nor was I in combat with him, yet his head still continued to follow my movements. Reminded of my first encounter with the Skull Kid on top of Clock Tower, I pulled out my ocarina and tried a song I hadn't played yet. The Happy Mask Salesman's own song, the song that had been playing on a loop back in day 4, the Song of Healing. I finished playing the song, and as I did, an ear-piercing shriek blasted from my TV. The sky immediately started flashing, and the Happy Mask Salesman's twisted theme song sped up, intensifying the fear inside me, and Link exploded into flames and died. 3 figures stayed lit and up until my death screen as they watched my lifeless body burn. I can't describe to you how sudden and terrifying the transition from eerie to terror is. You're going to have to watch the video if you want to see firsthand. Link will be around in annotations. That same fear that caused me to lose sleep 2 days ago started to grip me again, as I was met with the text, "You've met with a horrible fate, haven't you?" for the 3rd time. There has been some kind of meaning behind that. I had little time to ponder, as I was immediately given another small cutscene of transforming into a Zora, and now I found myself in Great Temple Bay. Hesitant but curious to see what the game had in store for me, I slowly made my way toward the beach where I found Epona. I wonder why the game had decided to put her here. It was similar in the game implying that she was trying to get a drink. Unable to take the mask off, I decided that riding the steed wasn't the reason she was placed there. Suddenly I realized Epona kept neighing, and the way she angled me made it look like she was trying to single a point to me off in the distance. It was a hunch, but I dove into the great bay and started swimming. Sure enough, I found something at the bottom of the ocean. One last Elegy of Emptiness statue. I went down to examine it, and suddenly my Zora started a choking animation. I never seen a Zora do before, which doesn't even make sense because Zora can't breathe underwater, unless it's poisonous. Regardless, my character choked to death and died. And again, this statue was the only thing that heightened in my light, was highlighted in my death. I didn't respawn this time. I was booked back to the main menu as if I restarted the console. The press start screen was before me, and I knew the only reason why it would put me here is because the save file had changed again. Taking a deep breath, I pressed start, and I was right. The new save file told me about Ben. Now it made sense why the statue appeared when I tried to go to the laundry pool. The game must have anticipated how I would try to escape the day 4 clock down. Two save files told me his fate. As I suspected, Ben was dead. He had drowned. The game obviously isn't through with me. It taunts me with the new save files. It wants me to keep playing it. It wants me to go further, but I'm done with this shit. I'm not touching any more of the files. This is already way too horrifying for me, and I don't believe in the paranormal. But I'm running out of explanations. Why would somebody send me this message? I don't understand it. I just get too depressed thinking about this. The footage is up here for those who want to see it and try to analyze it. I know it's early in the morning. I've stayed up all night. I can't sleep. I don't care if people see this. That's not the point. I just want the word to get spread so I don't suffer for nothing. I've lost the will to type about this. The less I dwell on this, the better. I think the video just speaks for itself. I did what you guys told me to do. I played the Elegy of Emptiness song at the first prompt of the game I was given. But I think that's what the game, or Ben, wanted me to do. He's followed me now, not just in the game, he's in my dreams. I see him all the time behind my back, just watching me. I haven't got to any of my classes. I've stayed in my dorm room with the windows closed and the blinds shut. That way, I know he can't watch me. But he still gets me when I play, which when I play, he can still see me. The game is scaring me now. It talked to me for the first time, not just using text that's already in the game. It spoke to me, talked to me. It referenced Ben. It talked to me. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it wants. I never wanted this. I just want my old laugh back. Stuff like this doesn't happen to me. I'm just a kid. Not even old enough to drink yet. It's not fair. I want to go home. I want to see my parents again. I'm so far away from here. At this school. I just want to go to hug my mom again. I just want to forget that statue's horrible blank face. My original game file is back, just the way I left it before it was gone. I don't want to play it anymore. I feel something bad will happen if I don't. But that's impossible. It's a video game. Haunting or not, it can't hurt me, right? Seriously, though, it can't, right? That's what I'm keep trying to tell myself. But every time I think about it, I'm not so sure. Let me just clear things up. I know you guys worry about it, but Jaduzables. Okay, I hope I didn't butcher that. He finished moving out today, and he said he's going back home. He's just taking the semester off. Not really sure what has happened. I have a vague idea, but you guys probably know more than I do. I'm Judazable's roommate, and obviously I knew something was wrong with him for a few days now. He stayed in his room all the time, fell out of contact with literally all his friends, and I'm pretty sure he hadn't been eating hardly anything. After the second day, I couldn't stay in there anymore, so I've been crashing at a buddy's place, only coming into my room to get stuff that I need. I tried talking to him several times, but he would cut me off or keep the conversation brief. When I asked him about his strange behavior, it was like he was convinced something was hunting him. Yesterday, I came in to grab my philosophy book, and he approached me looking awful, like horrible bags under his eyes. He handed me a flash drive and gave me specific instructions. He told me that he needs to do one last favor for him. He finally explained to me what's been going on. He gave me the account info to his YouTube account, and told me that he's getting away from here, that it lured him to play it again instead of trying to change things, that he shouldn't have done that, and to upload the footage and inform people what happened. I told him that he could do it himself, and he got this wild look in his eyes and told me that he is never looking at that game again. And that's the last thing he said to me. He never said bye when his parents came to pick him up. I never even got to meet his parents. I honestly could tell you what happened when he spoke. It was kind of hard to understand him, and his appearance really distracted me. On the flash drive, there was the footage of the game last night, a text document with his name and password for YouTube, and a third document called thetruth.txt, containing what he told me were his notes that he taken. He told me that this meant everything that I follow the instructions exactly. Normally I wouldn't be so to the letter for request over a video game, but the way he spoke and the way he looked at me, no, this was really serious. I'm going to honor that. I've had this video since yesterday, but had to have someone help me use his Pinnacle. That's not really my forte. After watching it, I had to go back through and look at his other videos on his YouTube account to realize what had been going on. And even I'm really confused. The video I'm releasing tonight, The Truth, will be released on September 15th, just like he requested. I haven't dared a peek at it yet, so the first time I see it will be the first time you see it, out of respect for my friend. To answer your questions, no, I haven't tried calling him yet. I think I'll give him a call tomorrow and see if he's okay or not. He should have gotten back home by now. About the video. In this video, I cut straight to when he loaded the band file in the video game. Looking back, I realized that Judazable left the save select screen in because it said different names sometimes, so my bad for that. But all it said this time was the same end of his last video, Lincoln Ben. Nothing different. I wasn't there when he played it, but it looked to me like he, in the beginning when he first spawns, he's testing out his equipment or seeing what items he has or something. Because apparently they've changed randomly before. Then, after that, I just think the game got too personal for him. Hey guys, Judazable, in quotes. Here, this will be the last time you will be hearing from me, and this is my final gift to you. These are the notes that I've taken and the realizations I've made. Before I delve into this, I want to thank you for following me and thank you for listening. It feels like the weight of a powerful burden is about to be lifted. By the time you read this, I won't be around anymore. But after spending 4 days with this maddening game, I have begun to understand what's really at play here. And hopefully after reading this, we can ensure that this never happens again. There are things that I could not share with you while this was going on due to circumstances to which I'll explain. With Ben blocking any attempt I tried to try and relay the info to you, I tried ever so subtly to warn you guys in various ways. Amidst the chaos and in my delirium, I devised a make and barely noticeable pattern in my videos. In all 5 videos I recorded over the 4 days, I have either had the Mask of Truth interacted with the Gossip Stone, or the Lens of Truth equipped at some point. For you Zelda enthusiasts, these are all symbols of honesty and trustworthiness, and I would hope that one of you may have picked up on the reference. I didn't know that. Wow. As I played the file, which I would name Ben, being mindful of how Ben was watching over my every move in the game, I made a point to avoid doing anything too obvious, but I sent out a hidden message to you guys. I never equipped the lens, nor the mask, nor visited a stone. It worked, and the video was uploaded. I pray that someone who noticed the pattern didn't reply to Ben. The tags followed suit too. I hope you guys paid attention to those as well. They were my little message to you. Nothing big, nothing that would catch Ben's attention or make him suspect of anything. With Ben manipulating and changing my files, I honestly hope that what you guys saw was close to what actually happened, but there is no way for me to know. The last video entry I made, Matt.WMV, began as normal. I was spawned in Clocktown as usual, and nothing seemed to be out of place. Determined to set things right and play the Oath to Order on top of the clock tower on the 4th day, I prepped myself. I sped up time and got to the final day, making my way to the observatory. As I got to the telescope room and approached the astronomer, he would not let me look into his telescope. He told me that would be cheating and that I should follow the rules. Despite my repeated efforts, the game would not let me do the 4th day glitch. No matter how hard or what I tried working around the game and doing the glitch, but it was adamant this time, regardless of if I simply had the illusion of free will in the prior games. This time the game became more aggressive than anything I've ever seen. It eventually told me to go to Iconic Canyon, where the game would end and it would stop haunting me. Anxious and desperate to end this nightmare, I played the Song of Soaring and ended up there. I was told to check my inventory that I would find the answers there to end the game. I arrived at Iconic Canyon and saved my progress at the owl statue. As I searched through my inventory, I finally noticed that I was missing a recurring song, the Elegy of Emptiness. Obviously, once I traveled there, I learned the song. I suppose that was the last thing it needed before Ben decided it'd have enough fun playing with me. Ben is a manipulator. He tried to fool his victims into security and makes you drop your guard like a Venus flytrap. Those things are cool. He ensnares them, and I am nothing but a puppet to him. He enjoys seeing what kind of human emotion he can tap into by doing different things. There are still some things about this whole experience that doesn't make sense. But then again, I never was good at figuring out these things, and I'm not exactly in the right state of mind too. I'm giving you all the pieces of the puzzle for you to analyze and to piece together the missing links. I am typing these closing thoughts on a library computer on campus. I've emailed myself the notes I have stored in my infected computer from the last 4 days. I'm then going to combine those copy-paste notes with the closing openings that I've typed here on the save public computer into the one text document. I'm not taking any chances of spreading Ben, and I would not wish this horrible torment on anyone. I've made sure to have my bases covered here. I didn't run into any problems with Ben when I was back on my computer trying to email the notes myself. But went right under his nose. He had no idea what he just let me do. Had no problems opening the text document from my infected computer in my email either. I can't describe to you how it feels to finally be able to get the word out in this post. The nightmare ends here. That said, do not download anything about these videos. Through a YouTube file, a screen grab, whatever. I do not know how he can spread, but I know that just watching them on YouTube, reading my text, won't be able to allow him to spread. Otherwise, he would have needed my help. He wouldn't have needed my help in the first place. But I strongly recommend that you do not take anything you see streaming online onto your own personal computer. That's why I am linking all the videos in annotations. This will be my last posting. I'm putting up this forum for the world. If you see any further posts from me after today's current date, September 12th, and the current time, 12:08 a.m., discredit them. It already has proven to me that Ben can access my account and password and manipulate my computer. And like I said, I have no idea what extent it can do this. But I know it will do anything to break free. He is desperate to ensure your safety. Just forget about me. Please. And obviously, this goes without saying, but from here on out, do not download any images I may have put up, any files, anything. This fifth day will be my last day. I'm going to burn the cartridge and then come back to my desktop, come back to destroy my laptop. Again, even though I don't know you, this is sort of bittersweet. This semester, I really didn't have any friends, or rather, I stopped paying attention to them. But I suppose that's partially to blame because I'm the genius who picked to live in a single, I suppose someone to get a hold of me and save me before I got too immersed into this game would have literally saved my life. However, it proved too much for me. I'm just glad to have it, and glad it happened to me, and I could get the warning out so that Ben dies here. Lastly, thank you for taking the time to open this and opening yourselves up to me by hearing my story despite maybe not believing me. You didn't have to do that, really. You shouldn't have. Your support this entire time has kept me going, and now I am finally free of this. Thanks again, Juduzable. I really hope I didn't butcher that. You shouldn't have done that, Matt. You shouldn't have done that.
And that was Ben Drowned. Well, this is by far the best creepypasta I've ever read. It does a good job writing the author's sanity deteriorating. Does a good job of creating a believable story. Minus some of the cliches, but they're very not noticeable. And very good writing. So with that, I give this game an A. my all-time rarest score. Okay, now how to get home for the world ends. It's supposed to be the final night. think. Ben, can I go home now? But why? Well, yeah, it is my favorite game, but come on! Well, if we're going by game logic, I'll just do this. Damn, I forgot the song in time! Well, I could do this then. Right A, down, right A, right. Is that backwards? And together, I'm gonna go with it. See you later, sucker! Can't believe that actually worked! I'm out of Majora's Mask! But with a haircut and a scar on my arm. I'm not questioning it. Bye!